Hello, Bobby Pompey here, ILS instructor here at Lighthouse, and today we're going to go over some skills that someone may use when they're dining out. So I'm going to cover finding things on the table, your typical place setting, and some variations on that, and then I'll move into how you may cut meat or locate items on your plate. So in general, when you are first getting to a table and exploring what's around you, the principle of low and slow is the most ideal. So by low and slow, that means keeping your hands on the table, so low to the table, not up where there's a potential for a wine glass that may be top heavy, or maybe a salt and pepper shaker that's a little top heavy, but keeping your hands low to the table so you can identify things that are not very tall, like the fork and your spoon and other utensils, and then moving slowly so that if you do find something, you don't have a lot of momentum going. So I'm going to choose to start with what's on my right, and in general, a typical place setting is going to have your plate in front of you. Off to my left is going to be a fork, almost always. Usually if there are multiple forks, the one on the outside is your salad fork and the one on the inside is your dinner fork, because you're working your way in towards your plate is kind of the workflow with those. Off to your right is a spoon and then a knife. And usually the blade of that knife is going to be pointing in towards the plate. But you may come across a setting where everything is on the right, everything is on the left. But if you use this technique that I'm about to show of starting low and moving slowly, so I start with my right hand on the edge of the table, palm down. I'm gonna curl my fingers so my fingertips aren't finding things, the back of my knuckles are. And I'm slowly gonna explore, starting directly to the right of my placemat, which lets me know where my plate is. And I know everything else has to be around the perimeter of this thing, of this placemat. So I'm gonna start and I find my spoon and my knife. So I'm gonna still keep coming around them. And here is a coffee mug. So in general, if you think of a spoon as something that you are more likely to use with liquid, like a soup, those groupings of things that are liquid are always together on the right side. So on whatever side your spoon is on is typically where you'll find your coffee mugs, your wine glasses, your water glasses, anything else that's gonna be holding a liquid on the table. They're all kind of grouped together, which makes it a little easier to remember. So I'm working my way from my coffee mug around. I'm gonna keep going around, and right beside that is a glass for water. Still kind of coming around the edge of my placemat. And there is a pitcher here of something to drink. And now I find the salt and pepper shakers. I keep coming around, my knife, which is resting on a napkin, and I work my way all the way to the left side of my plate. Now I have long arms and long fingers, so I am able to keep my hand pretty low to the table going all the way around, with keeping in mind keeping my hand lifted above my plate. You definitely would want to be mindful of if you have a sleeve that's maybe dropping. My sleeve is tight to my wrist or to my forearm, so I was not concerned about that. But you also can use both hands, so you can even do this at the same time to kind of come in covertly, check everything, and then your hands meet in the middle and you're not extending outward as much with one hand, and then you can just lift up, do an arc over the plate, and bring your hands back to front and center. So the first thing that I'll talk about is salt and pepper shakers. So I found these salt and pepper shakers, and I want to just give out some quick little tips about how you can identify them. So these containers are different. So that's one way if you're at home, if you are buying them somewhere else in a restaurant, there may be a difference. So on this, and I don't know how well it will come across visually, but tactily, there are horizontal kind of stripes on this one in my right hand, and there are vertical ones on the shaker that's in my left hand. So you can choose which goes into which, but a couple general characteristics. Usually salt is going to be heavier than pepper. So you can have a pepper container that is completely full and a salt container that's half full, and it's still going to be much heavier. So already based off weight alone, I can tell that the one in my right hand with the horizontal stripes is the salt. You also, some of them have larger holes for the salt, and so you could kind of use a similar motion to tap the edges. That isn't necessarily the best option if you're in a restaurant or somewhere where it's not your kitchen or your home, because then you're placing your fingers onto the area where salt is coming from and going to other people's food. And then also you can smell it. So without bringing it really close to your nose, you can kind of slowly waft it in, and pepper is going to give off a strong smell with it being maybe 3 inches from my nose, and kind of moving it in a circular motion like you may or may not have learned to do with chemicals in chemistry class. You can determine the smell of that. Another thing that you can do, I'll place them down, is take one at a time, and you can shake a little into your palm. And with the salt, because it is heavier, when you reach, it's gonna not have that pepper smell for one, and it's gonna feel more grainy. And this is another way that you can measure out how much salt you want to put onto an item. So if we have this much salt, then I know if I want this onto my food, I know exactly how much I'm getting, and I can dump it on, or I can sprinkle it on, like so. Okay, I'm gonna stop.